A missing corsage led straight to murder. Welcome to Marble Mysteries. I'm your host, Harrington. Tell me your city. I love seeing them. Wolfe traces petals soaked in secrets. Tuesday mornings at the brownstone are supposed to be dull in a controlled way. Fritz gliding, the orchids upstairs drinking their dew, Wolfe in his chair with a newspaper and a grievance. That one started the same, until the doorbell rang before 11. I got to it because Fritz had silver in his hands, and Wolfe had the kind of look that means he'd rather argue with God than meet a caller. On the stoop was a woman who had no business in our zip code unless she was lost or hunting for trouble. About 30, neat as a new pin, grey coat, black dress, and eyes rubbed raw by worry. She carried a hat box like it was fragile and explosive at the same time. When a stranger comes bearing a hat box, I've learned to step aside. "I'm sorry to come without an appointment," she said. "You're early, not sorry," I told her. "Who are you?" "Lucinda Sparrow. I need to see Nero Wolfe." Everybody does. I let her in and walked her to the office. Wolfe lowered the Tribune with the smallest sigh. He took her in with one slow sweep, expression faintly annoyed at reality. "Miss Sparrow," I said. "No appointment, Hatbox." "If you must sit, sit," Wolfe said. "Proceed." She sat on the yellow chair facing him, the box on her lap. For a moment she just breathed and stared at her gloves. "My fiancé is dead," she said. I blinked. Wolfe waited. "He wasn't murdered," she added quickly. "Not officially. Aurelio Cross died 3 weeks ago in Rome, heart seizure. He was 46, healthy, forceful. We were to be married maybe in the spring. He made a promise that night." She opened the lid. Inside lay a corsage of gardenias and white orchids, fresh enough to make me wonder if the messenger had watered it on the way. Beside it was a card in thick, decisive handwriting. "For Lucinda, to wear when the future arrives." Signed with a flourish that could only have come from Cross. "That's his hand," she said. "The flowers are exactly like the corsage he fixed on me when he proposed. He said he would send me another on our wedding day. We never set a date. He died. Then this arrives with his message." Wolfe's brows lifted a fraction. A sentimental friend could have acted on his memory. No one knew those words but him and me. She closed the box. Mr. Cross was not merely a banker. He arranged mergers and men with equal skill. There were people who needed him alive for what he could do, and people who needed him gone for what he knew. I loved him. I also knew that if he died suddenly, I would be the easiest person to reach for whatever he left behind. "So you interpret this as a signal," Wolfe said. "Yes. Either someone is using his promise to touch me, or Rome made a mistake and he isn't dead." She met Wolfe's eyes. Both possibilities are dangerous. Wolfe's fingers came together, the tented pose that tells me his brain is already jogging while his body stays home. "You have brought an object that invades my house and my schedule," he said. "That is not commendable. But it is interesting. Archie will obtain the particulars of Mr. Cross's death and of this florist. If needed, I will employ Mr. Panza." She started to speak, but he raised a hand. "You will leave the corsage here." Her chin jerked up. "Leave it? Certainly. It has disturbed my brownstone, therefore it is mine until its purpose is established." She hesitated, then set the hat box on his desk, a reluctant surrender. "All right, but please understand, if that corsage was meant for me, the sender expects me to wear it." Wolfe looked past her. "Then," he said softly and very politely, "we shall disappoint him." After she left, Wolfe sat a full minute with his eyes on the hat box as if it might crawl away. I lifted the lid, caught the clean bite of gardenias, and wondered who had paid to make grief smell so fresh. Fritz paused in the doorway, offended on behalf of breakfast. "Put it on the side table," Wolfe said. "Telephone Inspector Kramer. I want the circumstances of Cross's death. Then find the sender. The florist is not named." Rome's a long extension, I said. The police have channels. Use them. I called homicide. Kramer answered in gravel and promised to check with state. I left Saul Panzer a message too. Wolfe had said his name, and that's a flare. Wolfe examined the corsage without touching it. Gardenias and Phalaenopsis. Local, not shipped. Yet the card is from Cross. That is incongruous. You want me to sniff out a florist and a ghost. Also Miss Sparrow's background. She is controlled. That may be courage or calculation. I headed to Midtown. Lucinda's card listed the Cross Foundation. The place was a glass slab with board guards. A smile and my license got me upstairs. Her office was immaculate and too bright for morning. She came out quick. Mr. Goodwin, has Mr. Wolfe learned something? Not yet. The messenger yesterday. What did he say? Only, from abroad. Young cap, brown jacket. No receipt. Did anyone besides you and Cross know about that Corsage promise? Some knew we were engaged. No one knew the words. Who was with him in Rome? She gave me 4 names. Alton Weiss, his operating chief. Merrill Brand, his secretary. Dr. Thomas Lyra, his physician. And Julian Rook, cousin and money man. All had been there the week he died. Her mouth tightened on Rook. Weiss was 2 floors down, tall and polished. Wolfe is concerned over Aurelio. Interesting. Tell me about the night. Dinner with clients. He excused himself to his suite, and within an hour, the hotel doctor declared a myocardial infarction. No struggle. We brought the body home. Any reason to? Doubt it. Weiss's smile thinned. Aurelio collected enemies, sure, but if someone is pestering Miss Sparrow, it's tasteless. I'll cooperate. I went to the back wing where Merrill Brand lived in files. Small, sharp, eyes red. She slid a folder over without asking why. At 9, I was in his suite. He dictated a letter, then told me to order gardenias for Lucinda when the time came. He said he'd remind me. That line lodged. So he told you about flowers? Yes, only flowers. Not a message. Did he say what the time was? She hesitated. He said he was going to straighten something out. Then he'd be free. I asked if Dr. Lyra had examined Cross earlier that day. She said yes, routine. Nothing alarming, but Cross had sent him off with a joke about Roman food killing him faster than arteries. I tried to see Lyra myself, but his receptionist said he was in conference and would return calls later. Rook was worse. His assistant claimed he had stepped out and left no schedule. Brand didn't have to say it for me to hear it. The doctor and the cousin were being shielded, or were shielding themselves. It hinted Cross had set pieces moving before he left Rome. Either way, they were now the 2 I wanted most. Free. It sounded like a man stepping out of a trap or into one. I took copies, thanked her, and left. In the elevator, I thought about a corsage ordered on instruction, delivered without a signature, and timed 3 weeks after a death that might have been convenient. Outside, a black sedan idled at the curb. When I crossed the street, it eased forward. When I stopped, it stopped. Somebody had noticed my questions, and they didn't want the answers ending up on West 35th Street. I didn't give the sedan the satisfaction of a sprint. I walked 2 blocks, ducked into a cigar shop, and came out the back into a building lobby with a side exit. By the time I hit 6th Avenue, the sedan was gone. I filed that away and kept my face blank for the cab driver, too. I took a cab downtown to the florist strip and started with the simplest question: who had sent a gardenia and orchid corsage without leaving a trail? There are plenty of shops that can make something pretty. Only a few can make something exact. I worked down the list Wolfe had supplied, and at the second one, a narrow place smelling of wet moss, the clerk said, "White gardenias with Phalaenopsis?" "Sure, yesterday. Cash, delivery to West 35th. "Name?" She shook her head. "No card beyond what you saw. The fellow said it had to match a photo. Older guy, neat suit, maybe foreign accent. left the picture while he picked ribbon, then took it. Describe him. Grey hair, careful hands. Not a kid, not a florist. Did he say where the photo came from? No, but he knew what he wanted. He said, Miss Sparrow will recognize it. I paid for her patience and left with a receipt number and the pickup location on 9th Avenue. It was a check-cashing storefront. Useless, unless the man had been sloppy enough to show ID. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe was in his chair, the corsage still on the side table like a witness waiting to be sworn. I reported the florist and brand's comment about Cross ordering flowers for the time. Wolfe's eyes warmed a fraction. Cross instructed his secretary. Therefore, a person could have coerced her to complete the promise. But the florist's customer brought a photograph. The secretary would not need one. We must find a person who possesses such a photograph. Rook, Vice, the secretary, Lucinda herself. Or someone who watched them. Continue. He lifted a hand. First, we learn what Rome says. Kramer called while Fritz was laying out lunch. Italian police summary. Cross died at the Hotel Minerva after complaining of chest tightness. Dr. Thomas Lira was summoned and declared a cardiac event. A brief autopsy showed coronary blockage. No toxins detected. Body released to family. Kramer sounded bored until I mentioned Lira's name. Lira? There's a Thomas Lira on our list here. Came over last year. License still pending. Runs with a crowd that likes high-end pills. If it's the same bird, I'll dig. When I told Wolfe, he closed his eyes. A pending license in New York, yet personal physician in Rome. An odd resume. Odd enough to fake a death? Not without help. We need Lira in this city. Saul Panzer arrived at 3. Cross was in a control dispute with his cousin Julian Rook 2 months ago, Saul said. Cross won. Rook filed a new suit in Rome the day after Cross died. The Foundation Board meets Friday to vote a chair. Rook is acting chair. Vice wants it. Miss Sparrow's vote will tip it. Wolfe opened his eyes. So the corsage may be a lever on her vote, or a lower. Or a hint from Cross if he's alive, I said. Wolfe made a little sound. Alive is extravagant, but not impossible. The autopsy was brief, performed by a doctor in his interest, and a photograph was used for the corsage. We will invite those who might hold such a photograph. He dictated invitations to Fritz. Then Wolfe looked at me. Archie, return to the Foundation. Find Dr. Lira. If he evades, follow the evasion, and be alert. The sedan may return. I took my coat and went out into the color of late afternoon trouble. Halfway down the block, I saw the black sedan again, parked across from a hydrant, pretending it belonged there. I didn't wave at the black sedan. I noted it the way you note rain. Unpleasant, possibly important. At 6th Avenue, I grabbed a taxi and watched the mirror. The sedan slid in 2 cars back. I had the driver loop the park, then drop me at a department store garage. I paid, cut through the store, and came out on 49th. The sedan was gone. Either I'd lost it, or it wanted me loose. The Foundation lobby was as quiet as a bank vault. The guard's eyes snapped to me before I spoke. Dr. Lira isn't in, he said. That saves me the question. Who told you to say it? He flushed and looked at the desk. I went upstairs. Meryl Brand was at her file wall, pale and tight-lipped. I need Lira's address, I said. He left at noon, said he had appointments. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. If you find him, tell him I want my passport. He took it in Rome for security and never gave it back. She slid me a slip of paper. Riverside Drive, 12B. A doctor who pockets passports is either sloppy or controlling. I took a cab there. Pre-war building, doorman who knew everything but didn't want to. My badge got him to buzz 12B. No answer, he said, but he's been in and out. I waited in the lobby. 10 minutes later, a courier arrived with a flat box, got waved through and rode up. I followed. On 12, he knocked at 12B. A hand took the box. The door shut. I knocked next. A chain clicked. Dr. Thomas Lira showed half a face. Dark hair, sharp bones, eyes too quick to be calm. Yes? Archie Goodwin. I work for Nero Wolfe. I don't know him. You will. I've questions about Aurelio Cross. His expression turned to professional ice. He died. The report is public. Public reports don't send corsages 3 weeks later. A flicker crossed him. He started to close the door. I put my foot in the gap. Let's not make it physical. Wolfe hates that. He studied my shoe, then me. What do you want? 5 minutes inside. Keep the chain if it comforts you. He unhooked it and let me in. The suite looked like a hotel room pretending to be a home. Everything aligned, nothing lived in. On the table sat the courier's box. A pharmacy label showed through the paper. Diazepam. You were Cross's physician in Rome, I said. You declared his death. Yes, he had coronary disease. He ignored me. He collapsed. The autopsy was quick. It was sufficient. Were you alone with him when he collapsed? No. Alton Weiss was there. Miss Brand came later. Who paid you? Cross. Retainer. And now, I have no relationship with the Foundation. Somebody just delivered you sedatives. I take care of myself. Then why take Brand's passport? He froze. Silence is a confession hunting for words. She gave it to me, he said, for travel. Travel that never happened. He edged toward the bedroom. I blocked him. Don't. If you go in there, I go out and tell Wolfe you're hiding something. His stare sharpened. You Americans think everything is a plot. I get paid to think so. Did Cross ask you to simulate his death? He barked a short laugh. Simulate? Impossible. Not if the autopsy was friendly and the body wasn't his. That is insane. Maybe. But you were the friendly part, and you're being watched, same as I am. His shoulders sagged a notch. Leave. If Mr. Wolfe wants me, let him subpoena me. One more thing, I said. Who is Alina Varga? His head snapped up. How did you... The front door rattled hard, like a shoulder hit it. Lyra's eyes widened. Mine went to my gun. The lock turned. Someone had a key and chain hung useless on the jamb. I was 3 steps from the door when it opened. The man who came in first was Alton Weiss, looking as if he belonged anywhere he entered, right down to the mild surprise on his face. Behind him was the black sedan driver, broad and quiet, holding the door like a butler. Weiss said, Archie Goodwin, this is becoming a habit. It's a city, I told him. People bump. His eyes slid to Lyra, then to the courier box. Doctor, you didn't mention company. Lyra's jaw worked. I'm busy. You have no appointment. Weiss stepped in. You aren't returning calls. That makes me nervous. He turned to me. Mr. Goodwin, I'd rather you didn't pester our consultant. Consultant? I repeated. Not physician? Weiss's smile thinned. Titles vary. Aurelio valued Dr. Lyra's discretion. Discretion extends to passports? Lyra flinched. Weiss's glance sharpened. Miss Brand told you that. She's upset. Aurelio asked the doctor to arrange travel for her. It didn't come off. Travel for what? People? Papers? Weiss ignored it. You have no warrant to be here. I have a question and a good coat. Both legal. I looked at Lyra. Alina Varga. You almost choked on the name. Weiss's face went blank. Lyra said fast, I don't know any Alina Varga. Funny way to not know someone. I saw Weiss's right hand curl once, then relax. The quiet man by the door didn't move, but his eyes were on my gun. I didn't like the setup. Weiss said, let's simplify. Aurelio Cross is dead, if your employer is suggesting otherwise. He's wasting Miss Sparrow's time and my patience. Maybe he's saving her vote, I said. Friday's board meeting. Vice's nostrils flared. That decision is for the board, and for whoever is sending corsages. He walked closer, voice still mild. You should hand that corsage to the police. Leave the Foundation to its grief. Wolfe doesn't outsource grief. Vice sighed. Doctor, give Meryl her passport. Today, then call me every hour until Friday. Understood? Lyris nodded. Good. Mr. Goodwin, you'll go now. My driver will see you out. I can find the elevator. Still, I took the hint. On the way out, I let my shoulder brush the courier box. It was heavier than pills. That interested me almost as much as the man's key. I walked to the elevator with the driver on my heels and rode down in silence, thinking about what else in that suite was arranged and not lived in. Outside, the sedan waited. The driver opened the rear door for me like it was an invitation. I didn't get in. I headed for a taxi stand. He didn't follow, just watched, then drove off slow. In the cab, I called Wolfe. I gave him Lyra's address, Vice's visit, the sedatives box, and the name Alina Varga. Wolfe was quiet a beat. Alina Varga is a key, he said. We will find the lock. Archie, return home. Do not engage further without me. I could hear him breathing through the receiver, steady and annoyed, the way a big cat breathes before it moves. If the brownstone had been crossed, he would make the trespasser pay in arithmetic eventually, cleanly. You're telling me to come in out of the rain, I said. All right. When I got back, the brownstone was too still, even for us. Fritz met me in the hall with his eyebrows high. Mr. Goodwin, the flowers are gone. I stopped. What flowers? The corsage. His voice shook with outrage. I went to fetch the tea tray and it was not on the side table. Mr. Wolfe has not touched it, I swear. I went into the office. The hat box sat open, empty as a threat. Wolfe was sitting exactly as before, but his eyes were bright and cold. Someone has entered my house, he said softly, and removed evidence from under my nose. Wolfe didn't rise, of course. He didn't even swivel. He looked at the empty hat box the way a judge looks at a defendant who has smirked once too often. Time, he said. I checked my watch. 5:15. I called you from Riverside about 3:40. I got here just now. Fritz noticed the absence at 4:55. The corsage was here when you telephoned. Therefore, the intrusion occurred between 3:40 and 4:55. His gaze settled on me. No one entered by the front door. Not without Fritz or me seeing. And Theodore and I are the only ones with keys besides you. Exactly. Yet it is gone. So an outsider was admitted, or an insider is a liar, or there is another means. I took a fast lap of the office and hall. The front lock was fine. The area rug by the hall table was a hair out of line. Kitchen door? Fritz shook his head. I was in the kitchen since 4. The bell did not ring. Wolfe said, the basement. I went down. The coal chute window was cracked open 1/2 inch. On the sill were 3 grains of potting soil and a smear of white sap. Somebody had been there with the corsage, close enough to leave florist dirt. Wolfe's mouth tightened. An intrusion in the brownstone is sacrilege to him, not because of the object, but because of the presumption. He didn't say that, but I've watched him for years and can read the temperature. The theft had shifted the case from curiosity to personal combat. Whoever took the corsage had picked the wrong house and would learn that soon. Back upstairs, Saul Panzer was waiting in the office. I came as soon as I got your message, he said. You missed a theft, I told him. Wolfe filled him in. Saul listened, then said, there's a woman named Alina Varga in Cross's orbit, Hungarian. She left Rome 2 days after he died. Passport shows she entered JFK this morning on a diplomatic courtesy visa. Diplomatic for a flower thief, I muttered. She checked into the Belvedere under her own name. She's had one visitor. Julian Rook. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. So, Cousin Rook embraces a woman who alarms Dr. Lyra. Saul added, Rook also retained a locksmith last week. Invoice says Brownstone service. What's his name? Vito Renzi. Queens. I can have him here by dinner. No, Wolfe said. By 7. We will have guests at 8. He meant the invitations Fritz had sent. Wolfe loved a room full of motives. I used the lull to call Kramer and report the burglary. He swore, asked if any silver was missing, and promised to stop by if he could wedge it between 2 real murders. At 7 sharp, Saul returned with Renzi. Short, nervous, hands that couldn't decide whether to ring or hide. He sat on the red leather chair like it might explode. Wolfe said, Mr. Renzi, you were employed by Julian Rook. Renzi blinked. I do hardware. I don't know nothing about no Rook. You do now. You prepared a duplicate key for the kitchen door of this house last Thursday. His mouth opened, then shut. He said he needed access for an estate inventory. He showed papers. Did you deliver it to him personally? Yeah, he paid cash. Told me don't talk. Yet you are talking. Did he mention flowers? Renzi shook his head. No, just a key. Wolfe dismissed him with a flick. Saul escorted him out. As the door closed, I noticed the hall table again. The rug was now perfectly aligned. Fritz hadn't been near it. Somebody in the house had just fixed what the intruder had disturbed earlier, and that meant they'd seen it disturbed. I looked at Wolfe. He was watching me, and for once I could tell he'd noticed the same thing. We ate early because Wolfe wanted the dining room cleared before the guests arrived. Fritz served with a tight mouth, and Wolfe chewed in silence, the empty hat box in the office like a dare. I kept thinking about the rug being straightened after the theft, but Wolfe said nothing. He was saving his point. At 7:45, the bell rang. Lucinda Sparrow came first, composed and pale. Alton Weiss arrived next, smooth and cordial. Julian Rook followed, heavy-shouldered and impatient. Merrill Brand slipped in behind him, clutching a notebook. Last was Alina Varga, tall, elegant, with eyes that measured rooms the way gamblers measure odds. When they were seated, Wolfe said, You are here because an object associated with Aurelio Cross was delivered to Miss Sparrow, placed in my care, and then stolen from this house. I dislike trespass and manipulation. I will identify both. Rook gave a short laugh. This is theater. Aurelio is dead. Possibly, Wolfe said. But the living are behaving as if he were not. He asked each of them if they had ordered the corsage removed. All denied it. Then Wolfe turned to Rook. You employed a locksmith last Thursday. He produced a duplicate key to my kitchen door. That key was used this afternoon. Rook's eyes flared. I hired him for Cross property. If he wrote your address, he was careless. I wanted to see you to warn you off meddling. Then you are either inept or dishonest, Wolfe said. You did not ring my bell. You sent an agent through my cellar window. Rook half rose. You think I'd crawl through coal chutes? No, I think you delegate. Wolfe's gaze shifted to Alina. Perhaps to Miss Varga, who visited you today. Alina's smile stayed thin. I was not in your cellar. Then your purpose is different. Dr. Thomas Lyra was Cross's physician in Rome and is resident here under provisional license. He retained Miss Brand's passport without cause. Miss Brand, why were you frightened in Rome? Brand's voice shook. Aurelio told me to be ready to leave quickly. He said he was going to straighten something out and it would make people angry. Angry whom? Wolfe asked. She glanced at Rook, then Weiss. Both. Wolfe nodded. Mr. Weiss, what was to be straightened? Weiss spread his hands. The board dispute. Aurelio wanted Lucinda protected. Convenient, Wolfe said. Now why did Cross die after a routine day, with a rapid autopsy overseen by Dr. Lyra? And why did a wedding corsage arrive after his death? Whoever ordered it needed a photograph to copy it. Miss Brand would not. Miss Sparrow would not. Mr. Weiss, Mr. Rook, and Miss Varga could. Alina said coolly, "You are guessing." "Then allow me a firmer step. Mr. Goodwin observed diazepam delivered to Dr. Lyra today. Lyra denied knowing you, Miss Varga, yet reacted to your name. He is being paid by someone besides Cross." "By whom?" Weiss started to speak, but Alina said quietly, "Not by Aurelio, not after the last week." Silence dropped. Wolfe leaned forward a hair. "After the last week?" She hesitated, then went on. "Aurelio discovered Lyra had been dosing him to keep him pliant. He planned to dismiss him and confront Julian." Rook barked. "That's a lie!" "Is it?" Wolfe asked. "You had motive to control Aurelio and to frighten Miss Sparrow into voting for you. The Corsage lured her. Its theft protected Lyra and you. Miss Varga, who told you to retrieve it?" Alina's eyes flicked to Rook. "Julian asked me. He said it was to keep Lucinda safe from scandal." Lucinda's face drained. Rook surged up again. Wolfe's eyes turned icy. "Sit down, Mr. Rook. We are close to the center." Rook's hands trembled on the chair back, but he obeyed. Wolfe settled against the cushions, satisfied as a spider. I watched the faces and waited for Wolfe's move. Wolfe let the silence do the squeezing. When he spoke again, it was to Miss Sparrow. "You said no one knew the words on the card, but you and Cross. Yet Miss Brand heard him mention sending you gardenias at the time. Therefore, the sender could be Cross acting through Brand, or someone who heard of it. Miss Brand, did you tell anyone?" Brand swallowed. "Only Dr. Lyra. He asked what Aurelio wanted done if he died." "So Lyra knew about a corsage," Wolfe said, "but not the message. He could imitate the card because he had Cross's stationery, but he still needed a photograph. Mr. Weiss had such a photograph." Weiss stiffened. "I gave none to Lyra. Not for him, for you. You needed Miss Sparrow's vote on Friday. A corsage like the promised one, arriving with Cross's hand, would herd her toward your protection. You paid Lyra to arrange it. Then, when you learned I had it, you used Mr. Rook's duplicate key to steal it back and erase the trail. You misjudged my distaste for theatrical sentiment and my memory for details." Rook snapped. "I didn't give a key to Weiss." "You supplied the key and lost control of it," Wolfe said. He looked at Weiss. "Your driver followed Archie Goodwin today. Your driver waited outside Dr. Lyra's suite when you entered without ringing the bell. Those facts identify your instrument. Do you deny them?" Weiss's jaw tightened. "Security is prudence. Prudence that became burglary," Wolfe said. "Now to the graver matter. If Cross discovered Lyra was dosing him, why did he still die under Lyra's care? Miss Varga, you were brought to Rome because you are a clinical chemist, yes?" Alina lifted her chin. "Yes. You analyzed Lyra's medication and warned Cross. He dismissed Lyra and planned to confront Mr. Rook. Then he suffered a sudden heart seizure. That sequence is calculated." Rook barked. "You have no proof of poisoning." "No direct proof," Wolfe agreed, "but proof of motive and opportunity. You were losing control of Cross's fortune. If he lived, he would depose you. If he died, you could seize the chair. You enlisted Lyra, already willing to manipulate his patient. You arranged a natural-looking cardiac death and a convenient autopsy. You frightened Miss Brand and retained her passport to silence her. Afterward, you and Weiss quarreled over the spoils. So Weiss tried to weaponize the corsage, and when it threatened to expose him, he removed it from my house." Lucinda's hands trembled. "Julian, did you kill him?" "I did not," Rook shouted, blotched with rage and fear. He glared at Alina. "Aurelio was sick," Alina said softly. "He was sick of you." Wolfe nodded once. "Inspector Kramer is on his way. Dr. Lyra has been summoned by Mr. Panzer. Remain seated. Any attempt to depart will be regarded as admission." Rook sagged back, breathing hard. Weiss went pale, then forced calm. Brand stared at the carpet. Alina looked exhausted, not guilty. Lucinda kept her eyes on Wolfe as if he were the only solid thing in the room. Kramer arrived with Hurley. Wolfe recited his conclusions in crisp, orderly English. Kramer muttered a curse, then cuffed Rook and, after a sharp question about payments in Rome, cuffed Weiss too. Their protests made a tidy duet on the stairs. When the house emptied, Wolfe leaned back, the heat already leaving his eyes. Fritz brought coffee, and its smell began to scrub the day. "You were right about the time," I said. Cross was trying to loosen a noose. Wolfe sipped. Power is an appetite. Those who feed on it call their hunger necessity. It is not. It is greed dressed for dinner. I looked at the empty hat box. "And the corsage?" "Evidence is transient," he said. "Truth is not. Besides, I prefer orchids that stay where they are told." I couldn't argue. The house felt ours again. Next morning, the brownstone felt scrubbed after the previous night. Fritz was in restoration mode, polishing the banister and scolding the empty hat box for having invited strangers. Wolfe was upstairs with the orchids at his fixed hour, and I was at the desk opening mail, enjoying the rare luxury of nothing exploding before noon. Kramer phoned around 10. Rook had spent the night shouting about conspiracies. By breakfast, he was asking for aspirin. Weiss, faced with burglary and a paper trail of payments to Lyra, had hired counsel and was bargaining by offering helpful memories. Lyra was the only one who surprised me. Saul brought him in quietly. He went pale, then talkative. He admitted Rook paid him to keep Cross sedated and cooperative, and that on the night in Rome he increased the dose beyond his own instructions. He insisted he meant only to fog Cross's will, not stop his heart, and Kramer didn't look impressed. Lucinda Sparrow arrived near noon. She wore black, but it wasn't armor anymore. Wolfe received her with the calm courtesy he uses when emotion is the client. I stayed by the desk. "I keep thinking I should have seen it," she said. "Aurelio was different before he left for Rome. He kept saying we'd be free soon. I thought he meant from calendars and committees. He meant from Julian." Her hands tightened on her gloves. "They say he was being drugged." Wolfe folded his hands. "Grief edits memory," he said gently. "He loved you, and he tried to protect you by secrecy. That was an error, not a malice. He knew Julian would strike. He knew Julian would resist. He underestimated the length of that appetite." Wolfe's eyes held hers. "The Foundation Board meets Friday. You possess a deciding vote and the duty to use it." She nodded, then looked at the hat box. "May I have it?" Wolfe slid it toward her. "It is yours. I regret what it attracted." "If I had worn the corsage," she said, "I would have walked into Weiss's shelter and maybe his trap. Perhaps. But you did not. Therefore, you are not a puppet." Wolfe's voice stayed mild. "Mr. Weiss tried to bridle you with sentiment. He failed, because you are capable of doubt." She stood, eyes bright but dry. "Thank you." She carried the box away and left without looking back. Late afternoon, Saul dropped by with a sealed envelope Alina Varga had given him before she flew out. Inside was a photograph of Cross pinning the original corsage on Lucinda's dress, and on the back, in Cross's hand, a short line. "If I fall, trust Wolfe. He will see clearly." Wolfe read it, sniffed once, and locked it away. At dinner, Fritz served duck with cherries, and Wolfe ate in silence until the second helping. "Observe how greed betrays itself," he said. "It cannot endure patience. It thinks the world is a buffet that closes early." "Yeah," I said. "So it cuts the line and steals the table number." He gave me a look. Julian Rook believed inheritance was a right. It is residue, what remains after love, labor, luck. To kill for residue is to confess your cupboard is empty. Wolfe went back upstairs. I lingered in the office, eyeing the bare spot on the side table. The case had started with flowers, meant to promise a future, and ended with the future refusing to be arranged by anyone else. Not a bad exchange. I missed the smell of gardenias because they had told the truth. When I turned out the light, I thought of Cross planning to straighten his world, and of the cousin who decided to straighten him instead. In New York, that kind of geometry doesn't hold for long. The brownstone was quiet again, and I was grateful for it, because silence lets you hear the next lie creak on the stairs. Friday came with the kind of cold sunlight that makes the city look honest for half an hour. By noon, Lucinda Sparrow had called to say the board meeting had gone the way Aurelio Cross would have wanted. Alton Weiss resigned his bid for the chair, citing personal misjudgment, and the trustees elected a retired judge with no taste for private empires. She sounded relieved, like someone who had carried a suitcase too far and finally put it down. Wolfe listened without comment, then said, "You're done, Miss Sparrow. Be done." When he hung up, he stared at his orchids as if they had asked a question. I made coffee, because when Wolfe goes quiet after a case, it means he's arranging the morale of it in his head, the way Fritz arranges plates. Kramer showed up in mid-afternoon with a folder thick enough to make the whole table sag. "Rook's lawyer wants to plead him down," he said. "Lyra's singing in 3 languages. Weiss is trying to buy his way into righteousness. You were right, and I hate that almost as much as I like it." "You are welcome," Wolfe said. "Is there anything else to disturb my house?" "Only this. Italian lab is rechecking samples. Lyra's story doesn't cover everything. There's a chance Aurelio Cross's heart would have failed on its own inside 6 months. That doesn't help Rook, but it muddies the water." Wolfe lifted a brow. "Truth is not mud. It becomes muddy only when stirred by interested hands." "Yeah, well, courts don't drink philosophy." Kramer eyed me. "You got lucky with that Varga angle." "Wolfe doesn't do luck," I said. "Sure?" He left with a grunt that meant thanks. After he was gone, Fritz announced dinner like an amnesty. It was veal with lemon and capers, and he served it as though he were reclaiming territory. Wolfe ate with attention. That was the surest sign the brownstone had healed. Halfway through the second course, Wolfe said, "Archie, consider the corsage." I try not to. It makes me hungry for trouble. Nevertheless, the corsage was a symbol of a promise. Cross intended it to reassure Miss Sparrow on their wedding day. Weiss intended it to intimidate her into dependence. Rook intended it to erase a trail. Yet in each design, the object was subordinate to appetite. "Appetite like power," I said. "Precisely. There are appetites that nourish and appetites that consume. Love is the former when it is generous. Greed is the latter, always." I chewed a piece of veal and waited. Cross erred, he said. He trusted secrecy to protect those he loved. Secrecy is a cheap padlock. It keeps out the honest and invites the clever. "Still," I said, "he picked the right padlock this time." Wolfe's mouth twitched. He picked the right man. "That is different." It was an appeal to reason. "Which you served with coffee and a couple of cuffs." Wolfe dabbed his lips. "You are incorrigible. Occupational hazard." I leaned back, feeling the day settle. "You miss the flowers?" "No. I miss the quiet which they interrupted. But perhaps I do not regret their arrival. They exposed a corruption that might have taken longer to reveal." Fritz cleared plates, grumbling happily. The house had returned to its proper rhythm. Wolfe upstairs later with the orchids. Me downstairs with whatever book promised a laugh, and the street outside carrying on without our permission. Before I went to bed, I opened the office window an inch. The air smelled of winter and city soot, not gardenias. Good. Gardenias belong to promises, and promises belong to people who keep them. The brownstone had done its share. New York would keep sending us trouble in paper boxes, and Wolfe would keep saying no until the right yes came along. I hoped the next box waited till after breakfast, but I wouldn't bet. Saturday evening snow came down in neat, quiet flakes that made the street lamps look polite. I was at the desk with a magazine when the bell rang. Fritz went, then came back with Lucinda Sparrow. She looked lighter than the woman who had carried the hat box in, though her eyes were still working overtime. "I told Mr. Wolfe I'd come," she said. Wolfe appeared a few minutes later and took his chair as if she were another item on the timetable. She sat, hands folded tight. "I won't keep you," she said. The board voted. "Yesterday. A retired judge has the chair. Julian is in custody. Weiss is trying to bargain himself back into respectability, and I keep hearing Aurelio's voice in rooms he never entered." "That is grief's echo," Wolfe said. "I came because Alina Varga called me from the airport. She said Aurelio left a letter with her for me. It arrived this morning." She set an envelope on Wolfe's desk. "He wrote before Rome. He suspected Julian and Dr. Lyra. He told me to come to you if anything happened. And he explained the corsage." Wolfe opened the letter and read in silence. When he finished, he lowered it, his face unreadable except for a tiny softening around the eyes. "He anticipated this," Lucinda whispered. "He anticipated many things," Wolfe said. "Not enough." She looked at me. "He says the corsage promise was a test. If I got a copy after his death, I was to refuse it because love shouldn't arrive through strangers. If he lived, he would bring it himself." "Then you passed," I said. "You brought it to us instead of wearing it." Her mouth trembled. I didn't feel as if I were passing anything. I felt foolish for thinking he might be alive. "For thinking he might be alive," Wolfe said, "he would forgive you instantly. For doubting the intentions of those around him, he would applaud you. The dead do not require loyalty to their ghosts. They require prudence among the living." She breathed out, as if that unknotted something. "Thank you. I needed to hear that from someone who deals in facts." "Facts are often kinder than fantasies," Wolfe said. She hesitated, then reached into her bag. "Weiss's people returned the corsage to my office today. No note. I put it in the hat box and brought it here. I don't want it in my house." Fritz took the box with the offended care he reserves for dirty dishes. Wolfe glanced at it. "Leave it. I will dispose of it." Lucinda stood. "That's all? I wanted you to know he trusted you." "He chose well," Wolfe said. "It was the closest he comes to sentiment." After she left, Fritz carried the hat box downstairs. A minute later, the trash can lid clanged and the brownstone felt cleaner. Wolfe watched the fire. "You see, Archie, men try to harness symbols. Cross meant a promise. Vise meant leverage. Rook meant concealment. In the end, it was only flowers, and they died quickly under so much intention." "That's flowers for you," I said. "They don't care who thinks they're running the show." "Nor should people," Wolfe said. "Importance that depends on manipulation is counterfeit. It crumbles when exposed to air." I poured his coffee. He sipped and added, "Appetite is just when it is for food. It is unjust when it is for dominion." "So dinner wins," I said. "Always." Outside, snow kept falling, patient and indifferent, the way truth waits while men talk on. Later, I wrote up the report and thought about Cross's rule: distrust gifts that arrive through strangers. It sounds bleak until you need it. Upstairs, Wolfe was already with his orchids, tending promises that bloom only when earned. Down here, the house was quiet again, and we were ready for the next disturbance whenever it dared to ring our bell.